On today's episode of Future Says, I am delighted to have Hsiou Hochen, Chief Strategy Officer at XING Mobility. Hsiou, tell us a bit more about yourself and XING.
Okay, nice meeting you, Sean, and thanks for every audience who is listening to this episode. This is Hsiou. I work for XING Mobility as a Chief Strategy Officer. It's a company coming from Taiwan, and we do developing and manufacturing battery systems for electric vehicles. I personally came from more like a business background, so I'm serving more from a sales perspective to the entire strategy planning, fundraising, and some of the future roadmap for the company. XING, as you may know, we are working with companies doing vehicles, so all the vehicle makers will be our customer. In this case, we start to engage quite a few companies worldwide, not only in Taiwan, but also in Europe, in Japan, and in the States. So this is how we're presenting ourselves to the customer.
Amazing. And it's been quite an exciting time. At the end of 2023, you raised a series, right?
Right. So XING Mobility did close a Series B funding with a partner named Kubota. Kubota is a Japanese company, but being one of the largest agriculture tractor manufacturer in the world. They started to be our customer, and because of the electrification roadmap, they found it very competitive to exercise with XING Mobility's battery system into their tractor. So we started wouldn't say long, because in some of the discussion, 1 year is not long. So we negotiated for about 1 year, and they decided to invest a minor share in XING to secure the strategic supply chain and also to leverage, we'll be helping each other in global expansion in terms of electrification and agriculture.
Okay, amazing. So electrification of agriculture, is that one of the biggest sectors for XING, or is it electrification of cars, of construction, of mining? What is it?
Well, of course, the latter one, because in the long-term vision, we would like to empower all the electric vehicle to go electric, all the vehicle to go electric. But starting as a race car company, actually, XING was founded as a race car company.
Oh.
We found out there are common working pattern between specialty vehicle and race car. So agriculture, mining, whichever specialty attachment vehicle becomes the first target for XING to work with. Might be the low volume, high mixture market and segment, but we find out there is an urgent need for them to go electric because of the enterprise level fleet, because of the zero emission regulation sort of thing makes us think agriculture being one of the very starting point for us. But eventually we want to go to all electric, all vehicles.
Okay, and when we think about EVs, I mean, I'm based in the UK. We talk a lot about Europe. There's a lot of the car companies releasing their first EVs. It's all going electric. It's the same in the US. But I think if you think about the market, Asia is so far ahead in terms of EVs. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. I think there are strong vehicle makers in Asia, in Japan, in China, in Korea. China, of course, is really a strong player, especially in terms of electric vehicle and also with IoT with vehicles. Taiwan may be a player chasing after all these giants, but we find out because our experience with semiconductor, with electronics, so we do have advantage connecting to the new type of vehicle. Electric vehicle not only being defined as a new power or new energy mobility, but it also shows a different shape utilizing data in the future mobility. So I think this is one of the chances Taiwan is catching up. In Asia, of course, large manufacturer collaborating with all the big cell makers is already a strong signal to the entire world in terms of vehicle. We try to connect with all these players, but at the same time, we do understand Europe being a advanced market. Maybe not in terms of the total volume, but in terms of the technology adoption, in terms of regulation, in terms of the R&D, and some of the early stage discussion within Europe being one of the important market. That might be your background, Sean.
Yeah. Well, I think Europe and regulation, they go hand in hand. Europe is always at the front and center of regulation, for
Really?
good or for bad. I don't know, Sherwood.
Well, yes or no.
So we've got a car, we've got an electric car,
Right.
and we've got a battery.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, where does XING play within that ecosystem?
Right. So for people who might not be that familiar with batteries in electric vehicle, battery is more like we'll say that's a heart for vehicles.
Yeah.
Battery, we can say they're battery cells. People are familiar with battery cells company already. There are battery module or pack. It means we compose a system. We compose a structure with a lot of battery cells. But there are also system. System might contain battery management system, thermal management module, and with a lot different subsystem to help to control and to manage your battery system. So if we think through a layer point of view, battery cell being the foundation, battery module, battery pack, battery system, then we go to the entire vehicle. So the mobility, we don't do cars now. Okay, we're not making our own battery cells either. So we manage everything left in the middle, from module to the system. So this is also the advantage we think we have, because we can focus on at the system level instead of investing a capex which we do not have yet in the battery cell making.
Okay, so tell us a bit more about that. How complex are these systems? How big are these systems?
Yeah, okay. We'll try to have a simple example.
Yep.
Imagine using your mobile phone. Okay, sometimes it got hot, right? Because of charging and because of exceeded using. That's a small capacity of battery and mobile phone. And electric vehicle, there will be 1,000 pieces of it, and the temperature and the voltage difference or the current difference would be 1,000 times larger than single piece and this mobile phone or in the laptop. That's a challenge we're going to deal with. So for battery cell makers, I would say their advantage and expertise is in making that cell to make it perfect and very stable and standard to provide to all the customers who want to use a battery cell. But if a customer buying battery cell and who they want to compose that into 1,000 times larger system, there's a problem. We know that vehicle industry have been developing for more than 100 years. The electric vehicle is really a 5 to 10 years thing to most of the player. So we think there's a lot of expertise we can share with our future customers that how to control that 1,000 pieces, 10,000 pieces battery cell and the vehicle, and to optimize the performance for the drivers who would like to buy an electric vehicle.
Okay, so traditionally, when you thought about a battery with an electric vehicle, and now when you think about a battery with an electric vehicle, thanks to XING and thanks to the immersion cooling technology, what's the big difference? How have you revolutionized that traditional approach?
Right. So EV has been developing for, we'll say 10, 20, 15 years. We're starting with hybrid cars. People are familiar with them already. But battery cooling technology is really a new thing to all the EV. Traditionally, people might use air circulation or refrigerant to cool the battery system when it's going too hot or it's going too cool. Or so we'll say that should be a thermal management system, not too cool. And for immersion cooling, what we're doing is to immerse the battery cells into a dielectric liquid. And we'll circulate the liquid in the battery system to make sure the cell temperature and the system temperature is well managed at a perfect range of working temperature. This is what we do. For conventional battery systems, there are a lot of cold plate, pipes, different prevention for leakage if there is a liquid circulating. In this case, it makes the manufacturing being complex. And the efficiency of thermal management is actually not as good as expected. If you have been experiencing battery decay or some other challenges of charging rate, then that might be because of the thermal management. In immersion cooling, we'll say because of the perfect heat dissipation capacity, we'll be able to manage nearly 1,000 times better comparing the very original system with air cooling. So this gives the vehicle maker and all the future drivers a most optimized battery system that it will be able to support fast charging, it will be able to support longer range of service, it will be able to support safety if there's a car fire. That would be the difference XING Mobility and immersion cooling try to deliver to the vehicle maker and to the drivers.
Exactly, and it's one of the big advantages is around controlling that fire propagation, right?
Right, right.
So how big a challenge is that today in fires within EVs and within batteries?
Right. We try to do a experiment by ourselves. So we simulate a battery cell damage. We damage 3 battery cells in one battery system, and the data shows that the temperature of the system go beyond 1,000 Celsius degree in 5 seconds. So imagine that's 3 pieces of battery cell, okay? And a electric vehicle, there might be 1,000 cells, 2,000 cells. I don't have to talk anything more about like this matter of life and death. So battery fire on electric vehicle would be a challenging topic for all the automakers and for all the fleet management to deal with, because that would be critical to user safety and to the entire operation state of stability.
Yeah. Do you think that's one of the biggest challenges with electric vehicles, the safety aspect?
I'm not certain if that would be the biggest one, but it would be one of the biggest, because I believe all the vehicle makers endorse safety for their users. So any risk lying behind should be properly managed. Battery definitely would be one of the risk factor to consider, and we know all the vehicle makers or cell makers is actually investing a lot of resource to manage or to control that risk.
Yeah.
What we're proposing is to think from a system point of view, and we do believe that would be the most economic solution for vehicle makers to take care of the risk. Because for battery cell, we know there are future elements for battery cells, there are solid states, but that takes time, and that would take different investment resource to manage. Immersion cooling technology is not only used on electric vehicle. We see a lot of companies working on data center, on chips. They also do immersion cooling, but stationary ones. So it's not a new concept, and it's a verified technology. Now what we're trying to do is to commercialize this technology so that all the vehicle makers will be able to be powered by this solution. And that help to manage the risk factor.
That's very interesting. So the technology is proven in other sectors, and you're proving it within automotive,
Right?
Which I guess is completely different. A data center is a static
would be different,
thing,
right? Yeah. So we think it's a little bit challenging in mobility because you have to do shock and vibration tests going through with all the vehicle makers. We'll say the concept itself definitely is verified and is simple to understand. What we're thinking and what we believe during the past years in the mobility is that we have worked with some of the OEMs and companies like Kubota to make sure that it's businessly viable. It will be important for a technology adaptation. If it's a great technology, but there's no customer with no economic price to adapt, then that's not a good technology. What we're thinking is, okay, this is already a good one, and we do have customers, and we now even have investors. So this should be a good timing that we're rolling out this message to the entire industry, showing that, okay, here's a potential solution, and we can show more data to you if needed to convince all the users that this will be helping everybody in this field.
Okay. So you have hardware, but you also have software that does all the monitoring. Is that right?
Right, that's a very good point. So we know there are some also battery pack makers or module makers worldwide. We'll say they will be a little bit different because we also do our own battery management system. That would be more like a from a semiconductor level to software level. So our system would be able to sense and to control the entire system and to share the signal with vehicle makers control unit. We usually call VCU, vehicle control unit. So in this case, we'll be able to collect data, to share data, and to analyze data. So eventually, this will be helping all the vehicle maker and drivers to understand what would be the best way to use their battery. I think some of the automotive company is already on the way for this, but then if we're also the expert to immersion cooling, speaking of the immersion cooling data, we should be helping the vehicle maker as well. Then that saves everybody's time.
Interesting. Of course, it's 2024. Everybody's talking about artificial intelligence,
Right,
and AI. Is that part of the company too?
Well, we did brainstorm some of the related topics in terms of artificial intelligence. I think things might not be the expert yet, but that would be one of the critical in the future roadmap. Because if we can collect data, the way to analyze data and the way to operate operate the battery system might be different from what we thought in last year, in this year, or in next year. That would be relating to how the algorithm and how artificial intelligence will work with our system. And eventually, if vehicle maker is going to join the algorithm design and to optimize the behavior, because battery is not only giving electricity to the power, it's also giving to infotainment, LiDARs, a lot of different control, and how to distribute that power, how to optimize. That might be one of the holy grail we have to take care of. But we're not at the point yet. We have thought of that already, but we have to put that in the roadmap and to think who will be the partners we can work with. I think that's also part of my job.
Yeah. Well, maybe the series funding as well might help.
Right, that's true. Right.
You mentioned earlier, Sherwood, about solid state.
Right.
Can you talk a bit about some of the new things that are coming out within batteries themselves, some of the different ways car companies are approaching electrification?
Okay. I might not be the expert for battery cells because we only do systems.
Yep.
So I'll leave the scientific part to some other expert. What we know and what we believe is that in the future, even though there are different battery cells, they still need to be managed with thermal solutions. So now we're using lithium-ion batteries, cylindrical cells, pouch cells, prismatic, solid state. In the future, one of them could be the future solution for EV, but they still need pack, they still need system. So this is something we believe our competitive advantage will sustain. And solid state, I think, is a very strong trend for all the automaker to invest. We do know some of the potential opportunity lying in the field, but then ourselves might not be the rule to join the game, but we're open to all the solid state companies or vehicle makers if they want to combine immersion cooling with solid state. So this might be our angle.
Sure. And like you said earlier, everybody's electrifying at the moment, from a tractor to a car. And XING is involved in all of them. And even the technology is being used in data centers.
Right.
What are some of those unique challenges that the automotive space have when it comes to electrification, the agricultural space has when it comes to electrification? What are some of the differences there?
Right. I think for automotive, safety would be one of the biggest factors to consider. And there's also range anxiety, as far as everybody knows. There's also the issue of fast charging. I think one of the experience electric vehicle driver would have is thinking, calculating how long I can drive and where as a charging station I should identify. I think immersion cooling, because we can manage a lot of things in regard to thermal management, the solution will also help to counter these three challenges in terms of automotive fields.
Okay.
For agriculture, of course, we're not a tractor maker yet. Not in the future either. But we do know that they consider a lot about extreme working condition. Taking our recent investor Kubota, for example, we were told that their machines work in Siberia, but also in Sahara, and they don't want to use two sets of batteries. So how are we going to manage all the potential extreme working conditions in one design would be one of the most critical challenges we have to work with all these agriculture or mining vehicle companies. Also durability, how durable that machine would be, that will be critical to all the farmlands and all the fleets. I think these two factors are the new learnings we're having in the past 2 to 3 years with agriculture companies. That will be, I would say, in general, people all care about, for example, safety, durability, but there might be different priorities in between. So
Yeah.
that would be our observation.
Interesting. I was doing a bit of work with a company that makes these big diggers recently, and it was around warranty, and essentially they wanted they wanted to understand whether a warranty claim was a valid claim or not. And they could do that via analyzing the sensors off that digger,
Right.
and seeing if the digger was being used outside of the duty cycle. So that doesn't really happen in car companies because it's not so much fraudulent when it comes to warranty, but those diggers are used for everything.
Right.
And there is actually an intended duty cycle
Right.
of the digger. So if it's used outside of that, outside of the rules, then the warranty claim is not
Right.
valid. Which again shows that the differences when it comes to data, when it comes to electric vehicles, between diggers, between mining, between agriculture, between automotive. So it's all so different.
Right. I think, Sean, you did mention a point I didn't emphasize, but it's actually critical about like how we verify the warranty. So the battery management system would play a critical role in this assessment because we'll have to know how the machine retrieves power from that battery system. Then we know if that's really meeting the warranty standard. So the data, whether it goes through over-the-air transmission or the data being well stored and well analyzed, will be critical for all the vehicle maker in the future to make sure the battery is properly used and they're still providing warranty. That's also one of the challenges we met before. So our battery management system do respond to some of the warranty challenges and solutions. We also provide over-the-air transmission under the regulation comply with all the international regulation. So we'll be able to know how the battery is used and how we can remotely support. That's one of the advantage we're trying to build up.
I think that's the key point to the next generation of vehicles. This possibility of over-the-air updates is so game-changing.
Right.
Tell us about the value that OTE brings to XING, and tell us about some of the challenges with doing some of these things over the air.
Well, data transmission definitely being one of the challenges. The global roaming for data transmission and how we store, how we analyze that would be one of the technical issues we have to counter. But that I would say that's only a one of the matter we have to deal with. It's not a problem.
Yep.
But the value, on the contrary, is very significant. We do see that because we're in Taiwan, we have customer in North America, and we can tell the customer before that the issue happened. Because we analyze the data, we find out their different behavior from what we expected and different from customer expected. So we can alert them in advance. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we want to collect all the data and to let customer know potentially how much time they can extend the battery usage and what would be the best working condition in next year they should improve with all the drivers. I think that considering the concept of total cost of ownership, that will be very valuable to all the fleet owners or all the vehicle maker because they can know more about how where they can know something beyond the warranty. What would be the situation if it was test to fail? So I think those are some of the situation vehicle maker were not familiar with batteries before.
I had a conversation yesterday about connected car data as well, and how that plays into insurance now as well, and how you can insure people depending on how they're driving. Is that something of interest to Xing?
Well, I'm open to conversation with the insurance companies, but not yet to that point. But I think that would be one of the essential actions for all the vehicle maker and insurance company in the future, like battery cell, I mean, like the single cell, is definitely a very active energy unit.
Yep.
That means risk, and how the risk should be well managed would be one of the topic for all the vehicle maker, and what would be the financial calculation in between will go to the insurance company. These all needs data, and who will be contributing the data and who can interpret the data. I think that would be the job for battery pack makers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Xing, you've got your Series B, you're cash rich. What's the next year? What's the next 2 years mean for Xing?
Right. So Kubota is a customer we can openly talk about. We're working with potentially automotive companies, and we're thinking of developing that solution for them. We also show our solution in Vegas in CES 2024 that we want to do cell to chassis immersion cool batteries for the automakers. So hopefully in a short time we'll be able to tell everybody about how that works. Secondly, I just shared that we come from Taiwan, right? The manufacturing base is still in Taiwan, and we do understand that for all the vehicle makers, not only automotive, but also agriculture, mining, trucks, they want us to move to their places. So a potential expansion overseas beyond Taiwan would be the critical things to happen in 2024, 25. So I do love to assess a lot of candidate locations to see what would be the next step for Xing to establish offices, to establish supply chain, and most importantly, of course, we'll continue to do the fundraising to see how we can empower ourselves with investment and with the resource to propose new solutions that will be helping the vehicle makers to deal with their thermal problems. Okay. That would be the upcoming 2 years, I think.
Interesting. And then for yourself as Chief Strategy Officer, what advice would you give similar people within startups? You know, has it been all easy sailing? Has it been difficult? What advice would you give other people in a similar position?
To meet with different landscape in the new technology or new fields, a mindset of being open is very important. But that's already a very conventional talks we'll deliver to the startups. I think for especially strategy staffs or business development staffs, a mindset to decide what not to do at this moment would be important. For startups, there's always a reason why a company is founded. There is a technology advantage, there's a business model advantage, but that advantage can migrate to different fields. So there's always a lot of opportunities for a startup to try. To think of what not to do, which meaning to focus, would be very important during the 0 to 1 stage for a startup. But if a company passes the threshold of 1 going to 100, to think of what to do simultaneously in the future roadmap and not to limit ourselves would be important for all the strategy planner or strategist. I think this would be one of my observation and learning in the past 3 to 5 years, especially working on an industry with a lot of opportunities. EV, power, energy, I think since this is still one of the biggest trend competing with AI in the upcoming 10 years.
Excellent. Well, it's been a pleasure to speak to you, Sherwood. I really appreciate it.
Nice meeting you, and thanks. I hope my sharing and insight can help all the audience and also helping the industry to consider what will be their next step, whether from a personal point of view or from an enterprise point of view.
Wonderful. Nice talking.